Hello, this is Alina with Plantflix. Welcome back to our channel, and as promised in our first video, this second video is going to be all about how to grow houseplants from seed. Now, this video is actually a re-recording of a video that we took last week, but as it turns out, during the editing process, Jeff discovered that the audio was a little bit messed up for parts of the introduction, so we're refilming that, and you'll see me in a different outfit later on. What was that about?
I was letting them know that I'm here.
Oh. So growing houseplants from seed is an entirely different world than growing like your typical herbs or veggies from seed, where you're usually able to just plant them in some soil, throw on some water and some light, and usually the seeds will germinate for you. That is definitely not the case with most houseplant seeds or most exotic seeds. For that reason, they require very specific conditions. So that is what we're going to be covering in today's video. As I like to clarify to a lot of plant collectors just getting into growing houseplants from seed, growing exotic seeds is basically an entire hobby in its own right. It takes a lot of love and care, and you have to set up the right conditions, monitor those conditions for days, weeks, and sometimes even months in some cases. But it is so rewarding to finally see those tiny little sprouts poking out of the soil and then watch those sprouts develop into the houseplants we know and love. There's a lot of information to cover with how to germinate houseplant seeds, so we'll be splitting this up into several videos. We do have more information on our website at plantflix.com/blog, so check that out if you would like more information now. But this is going to be the first video in a series that we're going to create just so that we don't like clutter you with information in this first one. So this video is going to be covering the basics, and the germination methods are going to apply to those beginner to intermediate level seeds. So just as a disclaimer, I'm not a professional horticulturalist or anything. I actually got my degree in physics. So I'm just an experienced hobbyist, and I've just been collecting tips from other customers and just from my own experience of growing houseplants from seed. So if you would like to contribute any information, anything that you feel like we missed, please do, because the more information we have, the better, and the better for the hobby. So that's just a little disclaimer on that. So with all of that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the actual steps. So in my experience, when germinating tropical seeds, the conditions and level of importance that you need to consider are humidity, warmth, light, and air. So a great way to establish those conditions is by using a greenhouse, and we're going to cover two different methods today. One is the classic greenhouse, and the other is, for those of you that might be on a budget, like I am most of the time, is to do a DIY greenhouse method. So the materials that you're going to need for the classic greenhouse method is, of course, a greenhouse. We do have these available on our website, but they're also available in a lot of garden centers. They do usually come with soil pods. If they don't have any, then just make sure that you have some potting mix ready to go. And of course, you're going to need water and the seeds. Then for the DIY version, you're going to need a nursery planter, a Ziploc bag, or some plastic wrap or something like that, potting mix, and of course, the seeds. So the first step for either of the methods is to prep your soil. Now, with the classic greenhouse, it's usually pretty easy because they come with soil pods like these. They give you a certain amount of water to add. It has to be warm water, and you just sort of wait for the water to absorb, and you're done. So if you're doing the DIY greenhouse method and you're thinking about what kind of soil to get, always use potting mix. Do not use garden soil because they will have a lot of contaminants in there that are not going to be good for your seeds. So you can get any of your basic indoor potting mixes that you can find in Home Depot or nursery, just garden centers like that. Or, this is what I like to do, I like to use these cocoa peat discs. We do have these available on our website. You can also find them in a lot of those garden centers as well. They store really easily because they're dehydrated. So this is the end result of what happens when you add warm water to one of these. And they're really, really great for seed starting just because they make sure that your seeds don't get too much moisture because they can drown. So it's a really good starter. You'll just want to add some fertilizer once the seedlings start to get bigger. So once you have your potting mix ready, make sure that it's moist, never soggy, and not too dry. You want to find that sweet spot in the middle. When that is ready, we're ready to start planting our seeds. I'm just going to be planting some lace fern seeds. These are Asparagus plumosus nana. They're a decently easy seed to get started. I'd put them somewhere between intermediate and beginner, but they're a great contender for the greenhouse method. So I'm just going to open these up. This is what the seeds look like. So one of the reasons that they're easier to get started is because they're a pretty good size. Hopefully you guys can see that. Now, when you're doing the classic greenhouse method, these pods make it very easy that you just add one seed per pod. So you just kind of dig around there a little bit, get a little bit of a hole going, and you drop in a seed. Just lightly cover it with the soil. So you don't need to plant them too deep. Anywhere from 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch is good. In fact, what I usually like to do is I just sprinkle them on the surface of the soil, and then I sprinkle some soil over the seeds. So the seeds can still have access to the light, but then they still get covered by the soil so that they're like nice and warm and humid in there. So this is the DIY greenhouse method. I just made some little indents in the soil. I'm just gonna plant 3. I get a lot of questions about how many seeds to add per planter. It really depends on what the size of the plant is going to be. With something like Monstera deliciosa seeds, I say 1 to 2 seeds per planter of this size, and with the lace fern or asparagus fern seeds, I think you can be a little bit more liberal, somewhere around 2 to 3 seeds per planter is good. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cover these up lightly. And now with the next step, step number 3 is all about establishing humidity, which we said was the most important factor when it comes to germinating seeds. Now, with the classic greenhouses, that's made very easy for us because they come with domes. So the seeds are planted, and then you just cover it with the dome that they come with, and we're good to go. So what you can imagine is happening here is there's already a lot of moisture from the water that we added into the soil, and it's being kept in this greenhouse by this lid, so it's a very nice and like humid and also warm environment for the seeds. As you can see, we're already getting some condensation on the surface of the lid, which is a very, very good sign. If you're seeing condensation, it usually means that you have a good amount of moisture and a good amount of warmth inside of your greenhouse, which we want. Now with the DIY greenhouse method, we're gonna be using a Ziploc bag. You probably want something a little bit bigger. I just happen to only have these little snack bags. A sandwich bag is really great because you're gonna be able to put a planter like this completely into the Ziploc bag and just zip it up. But given the limitations of what I have, I'm just gonna be covering the planter, and I'm gonna try to cover it as best as I can. So as you can see, it's not as perfect of a seal as a greenhouse would be, or even as much of a sandwich bag would do, but it's good enough, and it'll keep these seeds nice and toasty and humid, and they'll probably germinate. Maybe not as quickly as these ones will, but they will. Step 4 is establishing warmth. As we mentioned in the intro, warmth is key to germinating your seeds. I recommend with tropicals keeping your seeds at least at 70 degrees Fahrenheit and no more than 100, because that's the closest range that they would get in their natural environment. Too many temperature fluctuations can definitely damage your seeds, so you really need to make sure you're keeping an eye on temperature. And one of the best ways of keeping your seeds at a consistent temperature is by using a heat mat. So if you invest in anything, definitely I recommend investing in a heat mat. There are a lot of options out there that are really, really, really affordable. You can get a nice heat mat for like $10. It's a small price to pay, I think, for keeping your seeds healthy. Step 5 is light. As mentioned earlier, tropical varieties are not as picky about their light. You can imagine they're going to be germinating in that dense undergrowth of the rainforest, so they don't tend to get as much light anyway, but you still want to provide some, especially once those seedlings start to germinate. Seedlings really need a lot of light. The key thing to understand here is to keep your seeds out of direct sunlight. That is one of the biggest mistakes that we see with customers that reach out to us that have trouble germinating their seeds, is they put their seeds to bake out in actual sunlight, especially if they don't have a dome. There are several issues that can come from that. One is if you don't have a dome, well, all the moisture is going to disappear and your seeds don't have enough moisture to germinate. And number 2, it'll definitely overheat your seeds. There are so many temperature fluctuations that come with having your seeds in direct sunlight, so just keep them out of direct sun. If you're going to plant them by windowsill, make sure it's a bright windowsill with bright indirect light. Otherwise, grow lights are an ideal option because you're keeping the light levels very consistent. Final step, step number 6 is time. So as mentioned before, there is a large range of times that it takes for different seeds to germinate. With the beginner to intermediate level seeds, it can take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. Some people plant their polka dot seeds or their coleus seeds and they germinate within 2 days. For some others, it takes up to 2 weeks. Different conditions, different times. Now, there are other seeds that are more intermediate to advanced that'll take you up to a month, and then finally some really advanced seeds are going to take like 3 to 6 months. So there is a wide range. You really have to research to see what your seeds need and time-wise in order to germinate, and just kind of wait it out. If it takes a longer time, you really do want to be checking in on the conditions that your seeds are in, monitor their temperature, monitor their heat, their humidity, and light levels, so that they're getting everything that they need. And then it's just a matter of waiting. A really good trick that I can recommend if those of you out there are a little bit more impatient like I am, and you don't want to sit there and wait for a month for, say, your Philodendron hope seeds to germinate, is always plant in batches. So I like to get some like coleus and polka dot seeds started. Those are really, really fast. And then I have my China doll seeds. Those tend to take about 1 to 2 weeks to germinate. And then you have your Fatsia seeds that'll maybe take 3 to 4 weeks, and your Philodendron Hope that takes about a month. And then you just have continual progress and something new to look forward to every week. And that is a really nice way to combat any of you that may be a little bit more impatient like myself. So that wraps it up for our introductory video on how to grow houseplants from seed. You can definitely expect more videos in this series in the near future. So I do hope you guys found this video helpful and just entertaining overall. If you have any questions, feel free to comment them down below, or you can email us in the link in the description. My husband Jeff checks the email every single morning, Monday through Friday, so we will get back to you as soon as possible. Please subscribe, check us out on Instagram or TikTok or any of our other social media platforms, and tag us in any photos or videos of your seedlings or setups. I love seeing those. It makes me so happy to see other people enjoying the hobby and just seeing the different things that people come up with their setups. So definitely do that. And yeah, that is it for me. I will see you guys in the next video.